A few things about the QWIIC cable that's used to connect this organic LED display to the Redboard. So now, as you know, the Redboard is an Arduino compatible-ish device. It's not exactly the same as the Arduino Uno, right? There's an Arduino Uno here. A number of things that are different about it is the size of the USB connector. The Redboard has a USB micro, which is more convenient to use than this one here. The Redboard has a different serial to USB adapter than the Arduino has, which is a little less convenient because you have to make sure you have the right drivers. But in ECE 231, 290, no, in ECE 304, that is, what you've got in your kit is a Redboard, and you've got this organic LED display, and I've got some simple code running on here. Now, some of you have asked, well, what happens if for some reason you don't have a cable, or if you manage to snap this connector off, how do you connect the cable to the board? Others have asked, gee, I've got an old Redboard, but doesn't actually have this QWIIC cable. And others have asked, well, suppose I want to use an Arduino Uno instead. How can I connect this board? Well, what I'm going to do is show you how you can get by if you don't actually have this QWIIC connector. So to start out, let's just move this equipment aside here, and let's take note that the QWIIC cable is really just an I2C connection. There are 4 wires on it. You'll see that there's a black wire, which is our ground. There's a red wire, which is for 3.3 volts. And then there are the 2 communication wires, blue and yellow. And blue is SDA, which is the serial data line. Yellow is SCL, which is the serial clock line. So I'm going to show you what happens if, let's suppose you want to connect this display up to an Arduino Uno, which does not have this connector on it. The first thing to sort of take note of is that the QWIIC cable here is connecting into the Redboard in 4 different places. It's connecting in to our 3.3 volts here and our ground here, and then it's also connecting into SCL and SDA right up here. So we could take and cut this cable and then splice some jumper wires onto it, and then we could plug directly into here, which is what we'll do to start with. So I'm just going to take this and I'm going to cut that. Okay, and we'll pull this piece off. So now we have our kind of decapitated QWIIC cable here, and I'm just going to peel off some of the ends, strip it off. It's a little wire, so you have to get the right gauge on a wire cutter. If you don't have a wire cutter like this, you can use anything sharp. You can use a pocket knife. You can use an X-Acto knife. But as ECE people, you certainly all have some device that you can use to cut this. Okay, so I've stripped those wires, and now what I'm going to do is just take one of these jumpers, and I've got a jumper for each color here. So I've got my red, blue, yellow, and black. I've got a little pre-cut piece of electrical tape on here. It's better if you can solder this, but if you don't have a soldering iron handy, you just wrap it around and then insulate it. And we're going to do the same thing with the others. The black wire. We've got a black jumper wire here. Put the tape on there to prevent these from connecting to each other and shorting. We don't want that to happen. Okay, now the blue wire, which is our SDA, our serial data line. And then finally our yellow wire. And these may fall off over time because we're not soldering them. But this, sort of in a pinch, this would be a quick way of, kind of a quick and dirty way of doing this. Okay, so now we have our display. We've got our quick cable, and we've kind of put these connectors on there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put black into one of the grounds on here. Note, by the way, that I'm powering up the Redboard with just a 6-volt battery pack. Okay, red is going to go into our 3.3 volt, which we have right here. And then the yellow is going to go to SCL. And the blue is going to go to SDA. And it's not working. I'm going to reset the device. And there you can see we're back in business here. Whoop. Okay, so it may be that one of my wires here isn't quite engaging, but there you can see that we're back in business, and what we've done is we've bypassed this connector, and we're just running those wires right into the board. Okay, so suppose for whatever reason you don't want to use a Redboard, you happen to have an Arduino lying around and you want to use it. Well, the code that I'm using to write to this is very simple. I'm just writing I've got a little counter. I'm increasing the counter value, displaying that, and I'm also displaying have a nice day. And suppose we want to run that on the Arduino. I have already flashed that same code to this Arduino here. So I'm going to go ahead and pull all these wiring off, and I'm going to connect the whole thing up to the Arduino now. As I said, it's running the same code. I've taken the same thing and flashed it to both devices. So we're going to power this up, ground, and V in. Okay, and now remember we said on the underside you can see we have our SCL. Let me blow that up. Oh, I guess I haven't pointed this out to you yet, but if you look there, it says it's SCL and SDA. You see those printed there on the back, and those correspond to these two. Those correspond to these two upper connections here. We have SCL on the left. So SCL was our serial clock line. That was our yellow. And then we had our SDA, serial data line. And then we have to power up the little device, ground in 3.3 volts. Let's pull back on the camera. And what we hope to see when we plug this in there it is, we have success. Whoop. I do have a problem with one of these wires not being connected. Okay, let's put that light off so you can see it. Okay, so with the exception of the fact that I've got a loose wire there, you can see that we're now using the OLED, the organic LED display, with our Arduino Uno, and the fact that we don't have a quick connector on the Arduino board is of no consequence to us because we've just bypassed it using all these wires. Okay, that's it.